He's an old head.
Youngins are really starting to get on my damn nerves.
He's a purveyor of nonsense. He's a Georgia high school coaching job influencer. His favorite Bible verse is, Jesus wept. He's the man of constant sorrow,
Welcome
Chris
to Coach's
Bam!
Podcast, and today I have one of the up-and-coming best strength coaches in the state of Georgia that you'll find. I was just telling him that if I was a CEO head coach and had to hire a strength coach due to what everyone else has told me and what I've seen and heard and know, I'd have to hire Coach Joe Stokowski. Thanks for being on with us, Coach.
Yeah, no problem, Coach. Thanks for having me.
So Coach told me he's originally from Eastern Illinois. So tell us about high school and what you did there and just go from there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll start the story off to say I was a terrible athlete myself. So the thing that really got me into football is I got my officiating license. And I did that my first couple of years of college. They think I was about the youngest person to ever do a varsity game in the state of Illinois. When I was 18 years old. And that was something I had a lot of passion for. I was actually thinking about going down that path, trying to maybe follow that to the college level. And then I just had a real big blessing in my life. A good friend of mine got hired at Illinois State. They hired me on, my first year I did it as an undergrad. And so they didn't really have GAs. So I just kind of had an opportunity to do a GA-like position. And then the following year, they brought me back. I signed my life away, signed something that said I would work 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. But that was really more like 16 hours a day, 7 days a week.
They didn't tell you that part.
No, well, I knew what I was signing up for. Let me put it that way. But no, we had a lot of success. We were actually the last school that Appalachian State played before they moved up to Division 1A. We actually beat them at the Rock, which not many people can say they experienced that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was a very special opportunity for me. I had a couple opportunities to GA different places, and I just kind of knew high school was where I wanted to be at. So nepotism worked in my favor. I got hired at Farmington Central High School, where my mom had worked for, the better part of 25 years. I was there for 3 years. If you're kind of wondering, because I know this is a Sun Coach podcast. This is not where a lot of sun is. So this would be so if you draw a line from Chicago to St. Louis, Peoria, Illinois is about 3 hours from each. And so the school I was at was about 20 miles west of Peoria. Okay. I was there for 3 seasons. And then I was somebody foolishly enough hired me to be a head football coach when I was 26 years old. So I was a head football coach at Villa Grove Heritage, which was a co-op, which in Illinois is a lot like Alabama in that there's a lot of small like town or village schools. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah. Like in Alabama, every little town has a high school.
Exactly. And that's really how Illinois is set up in a bunch of places. So I was at Villa Grove High School, and there was a school down the road from us, Heritage High School, and we had a co-op together. Our combined enrollment was about 360 students.
Combined? Yes,
combined. We were about 180. They were about 180.
Oh, okay. And
was there for 2 years. I went 10-9, made the playoffs my second year. So, and I don't think I ever want to be a head coach again. So on my gravestone, they can put, here lies Coach Stokowski, 6 feet under, but 1 game above 500.
There you go. That's awesome.
But so the winter before my second year, I was driving to work one day on I-57 south of Champaign, and there was an ice storm. Everybody in the interstate was able to brake except for the semi truck behind me, and my Honda got taken far off the road, totaled. It was a incredibly unpleasant experience, and around that same time, I discovered Football Scoop. And I just said, what I did is I printed off that list of, Palm Coast newspaper or whatever it is. They print all the coaches in Georgia that make over $100,000. Yeah. And I just printed that off. And every time one of those people would post a job on Football Scoop, I would apply to it. And so fast forward a year later, I applied for a job at, I'll tell you, the first place I applied to was Lee County, and I interviewed down there with Coach Fabrizio. And that was such an eye-opening experience because, the facilities they have down there and the way that operates is not like anything you see in the Midwest.
Okay.
And that ended up being, that fell through more because I don't think I did a great job in the interview when it came to English, because I was asked a whole lot of things about like EOCs, and I didn't know what any of that was because I wasn't from the state. And so
Right.
that ended up not happening. But then a couple of months later, I applied at Pepperell High School, went down, interviewed, fell in love with the place, had a really good rapport with Coach Hurst.
Oh, he's a good dude.
And yes, he is. Yes, he is. And him and I actually had a very unique relationship because I was his son's position coach.
Mm.
And so
Lucky you.
Yeah. So let me tell you, I will tell you a little story with that. And I might be paraphrasing this a little bit. I don't know if I remember this word for word, but the essence of the story, I promise you, is true. So I've been in Georgia for a couple weeks, right? And we're going to a 7-on-7 up in Pickens County. And this was the year, this was Coach Parker's year, the year when they went, what'd they go? 10-0, 11-0 before they lost in the quarterfinals.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were tremendous. And we're up there at a 7-on-7. And Coach Hurst's son was one of the starting corners. And he was, if you know Coach Hurst is not an incredibly tall gentleman. His wife is not either. And you can guess his son was not either. Probably 5'6", 5'7". And they throw a ball, kid catches over his head. And Coach Hurst is like, well, shoot, if he can't get the job done, put somebody in that can. And I remember looking at it, I said, Coach, he can't get the job done. You're right, but I don't have anybody better. So this is just what we got. And so that year went well, and he ended up getting better and better and better. And then the next year, his son, Ryan is his name. He goes to UGA now. But Ryan ended up being an all Rome News Tribune corner and had a phenomenal senior season. And he could get on the top shoulder of a corner ball better than any DB I've ever coached. And so that really, in a way, Coach Hurst. If you know Coach Hurst, he's a no nonsense, old school type of guy. And so that really galvanized my relationship with my position group, and then also galvanized my relationship with Coach Hurst himself. And so I was 3 years at Pepperell, and that was just a fantastic opportunity for me to really get to know the best parts of Georgia high school football. When you score a touchdown there, the dragon breathes fire and they shoot off the cannon. And
yes, we played there one year, and I was at Temple, and it was like in 08, 09, somewhere along in there, and they were really good. Pepperell was really, really good, and we were not. And the defensive coordinator, Steve Robinson, he's like, man, they're gonna run out of gas for too long or burn them trees down one because we cannot stop them. So it was cool, that dragon blowing out fire and stuff. There, it's pretty cool.
The DC I worked under there, Joe Curtis, I worked for him for 2 years, and he would always forget that the cannon shot off when we'd score a touchdown. And so whatever my second year was, we had a pretty good year, went 9-3 that year. And I just remember I had to be on the headset, hey, cannon's about to go off. Because when I wouldn't remind him, it would scare him every single time. But no, so that was a really good experience. And one of the things I guess this is the thing that kind of changed my life, is literally my first day at Pepperell, the meeting we had before the first day we were going to have kids. There was a very somber tone to the meeting because Coach Honeycutt had just taken a job. He had been the DC there. I'm talking Jeff Honeycutt, had just taken a job at Cartersville High School. And I think he obviously his dad, the field's named after him, and he had been a mainstay there for years and years. And while everybody there was concerned about, well, what are we going to do for a defensive coordinator, that late in May, early in June, my ears perked up when they said, well, he was also the boys track coach. And so that day I said, if nobody really wants that job, I'd be interested in taking it. And we tried some new training methodology things that I had picked up when I was in Illinois. The Feed the Cats methodology, which is essentially it's stripping down track and field to just working on maximum output sprint ability, and then working on your conditioning as the season goes on, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You can think a lot of the programs, what are they going to do? They're going to try to condition the kids early, burn them out, run kids off. And then as it dwindles down, they'd work on their speed work as the year got toward the end. We worked on the opposite calendar.
You're kind of working backwards.
Yeah, we would work backwards.
From conventional knowledge.
Yes, exactly. So what we would always say is like, the first meet of the year, you're going to run fast, but you're going to feel really out of shape. So make sure there's a bucket at the finish line. And the idea is that as the year goes on, you're going to have so many opportunities to get in shape through the meets themselves, where, in Georgia track, nothing matters until region.
Right.
So it was always about region in mind. We could have cared less about the results in February and March, as long as it was on a trajectory for us to be successful in May. And so we just had some success, more success than I thought we would have. And we had a really good year my first year with track. And then the second year we had a real good shot of probably placing top 10 in state. And, those mountain schools don't usually place top 10 in state in track. So COVID derailed that, but we had a real good chance of having a real good season that season. And I was able to kind of parlay some of that success I had melding track speed with football success. I parlayed that into a job at Jackson High School, where I was at for 2 years. And I worked under Coach Derry Myricks, who I think there's a lot of people that know Derry, but not as many that not enough people know him, because his whole thing is he was born and raised there. He played high school football at Jackson, and then had a stint in the pros and played arena ball, and came back and was an assistant at Jackson and then a head coach at Jackson for a decade. And you talk about a guy who's invested in his community, and when you think about community football, he's the model of what that is and what that should look like. So I was there with him for 2 years. And then
what did you do at Jackson?
So I was, I should say the big reason I wanted to leave Pepperell and go to Jackson was because I was a full-time English teacher at Pepperell, and I took the GACE. I wanted a chance to get into the weight room. So that was the thing that pushed me over the edge to leave. I loved everything about Pepperell. It was just if I get a chance to work with athletes all day instead of teaching comma placement and characterization in fiction novels. Not that that doesn't mean the world to me, but I just wanted a chance to kind of change what my day looked like. So at Jackson, I was a strength coach, and then my second year there, the guy who had been the D coordinator there for I think for the good part of a decade as well, he retired. So I was the defensive coordinator there the second year I was there. And then Coach Myricks resigned his job as the football coach to take a job in administration, which was something that he had always aspired to. His whole thing is, a lot of coaches, what do you want to do? Well, I want to win a state title. And a lot of them don't say this out loud, but a lot of, I'd like to move up to a larger school and get paid more money. Right. Mm-hmm. That was not his aspiration. His aspiration is to someday be the principal of Jackson High School, because that community just means so much to him. And so we knew that day would always come. We just didn't think it was going to come that off season. So he told us on a Wednesday that he was going to be taking that job in administration. I kind of put myself out there on social media that day. The very next day, I got a message from Greg Carswell, who was just asking for my contact information. I spoke to him, and I'm looking at Coach Carswell's Twitter profile, and it's got Gainesville on it. So I called my wife, and I was like, "Hey, this might be something." And so I talked to Coach Carswell, and he's like, "Well, no, I'm not going to be at Gainesville." And so my whole thing was, "Oh shoot, what school is he going to be at? Like, who's interested in bringing me in?" And another school that starts with G came across the phone, and no, he said he's going to be coming back to Grayson to be the defensive coordinator. So that was on a Thursday. That Friday, I spoke up at the Seven Hills Clinic that Coach Mathis has up at Coosa. In that same day, Nate Mathis, who was leaving Grayson to go to Gainesville, him and I spoke back to back at that clinic. And Santavius Bryant, who's the head coach now at Grayson, he asked Coach Mathis to kind of watch my presentation, see if I knew what I was talking about. So I have them all fooled as well. He calls Coach Bryant, tells him, hey, you should hire this guy. Coach Bryant and I talked on that Saturday, and it was a done deal after that. So I took the job at Grayson last spring. Last spring was really, really hectic. I was trying to balance. We had a couple of really, really good track athletes at Jackson, so they ended up finishing tremendously well at state. We think we took, I'm going to lose count here, but 6 competitors to state last year. All of them performed their best that they had done all season at state. And so I was driving back and forth between taking those guys to sectional and going to Albany, and also trying to get back for as many spring practices as I could at Grayson. And that's where I've been for the last season.
So are you just the strength and conditioning coach at Grayson, or do you coach a position as well?
Okay, so that's actually a funny story. I'm actually not the strength coach at Grayson.
Okay.
So they gave me a title that I don't deserve, but I'm the director of sports science, and I'll explain a little bit what that means. So our strength coach at Grayson is Aaron Hill. And Aaron,
okay, yeah.
Aaron spent some time with Coach Richt at Georgia. I'm not exactly sure how high he climbed, but he was a GA and then I think an analyst. And then I don't want to tell his story, but long story short, he was at Grayson for a bit, and then he was at Loganville for a season, and then he was the head coach at Seconder.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was there for 6 months, and then he ended up back at Grayson when Santavius got hired. So I would say that we kind of work collaboratively, Coach Bryant, Coach Hill, and I on our program. So the best way I can describe it is Coach Bryant has the vision for it. Coach Hill does the programming. And I would say if Coach Hill's in charge of the inputs, then I'm in charge of the outputs. And what I mean by that is collecting the data, tracking to see if our guys are progressing, how we want them to progress. And we do a whole battery of different things that we do, just trying to provide our kids the best, sports development environment that we can provide. So no, my day now is actually, I've kind of reverted back. So I teach 3 periods of English, and then I spend 3 periods with the football team. 3rd period with our freshmen, 4th period with our older guys, and then 5th period we get more time with our older guys in advisement.
And do you coach a position?
Oh yeah, so I'm the special teams coordinator, and if I have a position, it would be I help with the Rovers, which is our middle safety in our. We run a 3-3 high look, and so the middle safety is it's not incredibly confusing, and it's something that I can do a good job with at practice. But the big thing is and I didn't realize this until we really got into games this year. I had helped with special teams, but I'd always been also the defensive coordinator, so it always kind of flow from one thing to the next. What I didn't recognize is at Grayson. Well, I should say at places at Pepperell and places at Jackson, when you're subbing people in for punt team, for the most part, it's about the same kids who are already out there on the field.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Where at Grayson, where our roster is, we're sometimes it's close to 200 kids when you add in the freshmen. It's usually about, 100 to 120 sophomores through seniors. And so it's much more college-esque in that those guys we're putting out on a punt team or a punt return team are, we're spending more time with scheme. We're spending more time with personnel. And so if it's 3rd and 6 and we get a sack and now it's or if it's 2nd and 6, we get a sack and now it's 3rd and 12, I can't sit there and watch 3rd down, right? My back is turned to the field. I'm getting ready to, the punt block unit ready to go, or, vice versa. If it's offensively, getting the punt group ready to go. So it's coaching that middle safety is a good experience for me because I'm getting to I'm getting to learn the ins and outs of the defense, but also like we have another guy, Coach Jones, and his focus is the safeties. So when I'm not able to coach those guys in the game, he picks them up. I would say in a way I'm his assistant at practice.
So being the special teams coordinator at a school that size, you have your own. I mean, you ain't got time to fool with rovers. you got to get your guys ready because they're a whole different, probably at least 9, 8 or 9. You're probably not subbing out everybody, but most of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really at practice, I had to learn. It took me a couple weeks. But the moments where I could really focus on my position group, and then the moments where I had to kind of sneak away 30 seconds early from Indy or whatever it might be, so I could go get my stuff ready so it could be seamless. Because, with special teams, like you've got coaches that help you with it, but it's not collectively as in-depth as offense and defense. And what I mean by that is, with your coaches, you're not sitting down and having the 6-hour meeting on Sunday about, you're not spending 2 hours a piece on special teams,
right? On
each special team, So with the coaches, it's just making sure they know, make sure we know the personnel we're going to focus on this week. Make sure that we know, the if we're going to do one thing, we're going to no more than 3 things. You know what I mean? Because we don't want to overload the guys. Make sure they can play fast. And so, trying to find you kind of have your hands in a little bit of everything when you're a special teams guy too, because you're dealing with, which skill guys are healthy that we can use on this, or which second team linebackers coming back from injury that we could plug in. And there's a whole lot of moving parts when it comes to it. So, just the managerial side of it, I would say is the thing that probably takes up the most time.
So do you coach track as well, or you just do your director of sports performance do that?
Yeah, I don't coach track. They have a great track program at Grayson, and they got plenty of coaches. So, no, that wasn't, and my wife said, if we're going to take this job and you're going to be coaching, an extra month every season now, because of the success that's expected there. It gives me a little bit more time in the spring. But the other thing too is, the work demand in the spring for us is extraordinary when you consider the amount of, coaches that come through, during the live periods, and just the sheer amount of data that gets collected when you have the number of kids that we have. I wouldn't say that I'm sitting at home twiddling my thumbs at night. Not at all. There's always something.
You're dealing with 200 kids. Yeah.
Yeah. There's always something that we can do, or there's one thing that we can analyze something in a new way, or we can, make an updated highlight video, or we can make a graphic for social media, or there's always something that we can do. And, so no, it's definitely a full-time gig.
Oh, absolutely. I'm interested to know what it was like making the jump from, AA, 3A size to a, national schedule playing powerhouse like Grayson. I mean, what was that like?
I would say, at the end of the day, kids are kids, right? Whether they're a 5-star kid or a no-star kid is going to go work on the farm next year. A kid is a kid. They want to be treated with respect, and they want to get out of it, what they put into it. I would say the biggest thing that changed for me, and this is going to be kind of a boring answer, but was just the scaling of everything that I was doing. And that was that, at a summer workout when I was at Jackson, we may have anywhere from 55 to 75 kids, right, that we're working with, where at Grayson, that number is closer to 200, right? So whatever I was doing, if I could streamline it better, I had to do that. And if, whatever I could do to increase the logistics or the function of what we were doing, that was really the place I had to step up my game. Cutting out the things that were less important and making sure that we emphasize the things that were more important. That's a way to cut out any clutter, because with that many kids, any clutter in the sauce is going to lead to a lot of disarray. So no, I would say that was probably the biggest step up. I will tell you schematically, the biggest difference is like we would cheat on a bunch of stuff at Jackson. Like we knew quarterbacks couldn't throw the ball from one hash to the opposite number. So like we were playing country cover 3, but we would tell our guys, like, don't worry about covering anything outside the number to the field, because that kid can't get it that far. Where, in 7A, well, what will now be 6A, you're going to face 4 or 5 quarterbacks a year that can make throws that you only see from maybe 1 or 2 kids in the whole classification in AAA. So from that standpoint, the football becomes more complex because the abilities of the quarterbacks is more complex.
Right.
And I think the other thing too with it is you have a lot less kids playing both ways. So they're getting double amount of time with their coordinators at practice. And it's, I would say like our weekly schedule in terms of workload and film breakdown, it's much closer to, what I was doing when I was a GA, than what I was doing when I was coaching, small school in Illinois.
So with what Coach Hill, I'm obviously Coach Bryant is, the architect of what everyone's doing, but how much have you been able to implement your chasing cats speed stuff, or is that just kind of goes with what's already been in place? Or
no, so I'm glad you brought that up. So I'm a pretty eccentric personality, and those conversation I had with Coach Bryant was like, don't hire me unless you want me to do my thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so because it wasn't gonna work if I was a square peg in a round hole, but that was one big emphasis that Coach Bryant had, is that he wanted us to have a bona fide trackable speed program where we could say, hey, day 1, this kid was this fast. 6 months later, he's this fast. A year later, he's this fast, and be able to have long-term data tracking of our athletes to make sure we were putting them in the best situation possible. Not just, hey, we're going to time 40s once every spring, and if the stopwatch is fast that day, we're doing our jobs. He wanted there to be a little bit more thought and process to it. The other thing is last year we added GPS. So that's another one of my big tasks is we have 25 catapult GPS systems. And so making sure those are on the right guys, making sure, listen, like there's times where it's glamorous, where a kid does something really fancy and we put a video out on social media and it gets 10,000 views and you can see the graphic of the kid doing from the GPS, and then you can watch the play itself. And that's the glamorous part. What's not the glamorous part is when a kid accidentally puts his vest on a loop and I'm digging through the laundry and I got to go press the emergency button on it and dig through it and make sure that it's gone through the wash a little. I just got to make sure it doesn't go through the wash a lot. So
because they're still kids.
Yeah, they're still kids. At the end of the day, they're still kids.
They might have fancy toys and nice stuff, but they're still going to do not hit things.
Absolutely. So, so that's been one. I would say my favorite thing about being there is the collaboration every day I get to have with Coach Hill and Coach Bryant. We're really proud of the work we've done so far. We I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but we just finished our
Saturday.
Oh, okay, great. So, but we just finished our block before, spring break. And so we were looking at where were we when we came into the semester, until now, because really, when we get back, it'll just be 3 or 2.5 weeks. And then spring ball will be here. So, this is a really good, reflection point to kind of see the growth that we've had. And, we're really proud of, the numbers, the increases that we've seen, in size and speed and strength in the weight room. And just little things that aren't as quantifiable, but just working on things like ankle strength and ankle mobility, and just, when you get to see your 290-pound guard be able to push off his right ankle better than he could last year. And you just know if every kid is seeing those little incremental improvements, that as a whole and as a team, that's going to push us forward. That's working with those two gentlemen and getting to see that improvement in our athletes to me, it's one of the best things we got going for us.
Yeah, because I think most coaches, they sit around and they think, oh, well, he's at Grayson and they have all these athletes and they da-da-da-da-da and do all this stuff and have all these resources. You still have to coach them. I mean, you still have to train them. You still have to make them better, because in your league, everybody's got them.
Yeah, and I'll say it. So I'm not going to poor boy here at all. I mean, Grayson is Grayson. It's a very special place. But it's not a city system. We're still one of 20 schools in Gwinnett County, or one of 19 schools in Gwinnett County. So, we have a field house, but everybody in Gwinnett has a field house.
Right.
We got a turf field, everybody, but we don't have a a covered practice field to go in when it rains. We don't have a bonus turf field, up on the top. Like
you can't control your enrollment.
No. I mean, and so
who you got.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not going to play dumb here. Everybody knows, success follows success, and kids will move in. I can tell you this, the very first week you're at Grayson, they have during the teacher planning, they'll have all the coaches come in, and Coach DeBerry, who is our athletic director, he tells you straight up, listen, everybody knows who we are. If we don't do things, if we don't dot every I and cross every T, we'll be the first people to get turned in.
Right.
And so I would say that's one of those things where we go above and beyond to make sure we're doing things the right way.
Well, not only that, just talking about how much y'all work these kids, because what I'm saying is most people just sit back and go, oh, well, they're Grayson, they've got athletes. So you just roll them out there and they just run faster and jump higher. And
I will tell you this, and this was the biggest shock to me when I got there. Because, I had coached at Pepperell, I had coached at Jackson. This jump it wasn't anything that it didn't look anything like where I was coming from. Right. I could not believe the work ethic of the kids. It was phenomenal, and it still is.
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I'll say this, they've won 3 state titles there under 3 different head coaches. It's more just an expectation that if my child plays at Grayson High School, he's going to get pushed. And our whole thing is we want to win a state championship every year, win every game that we coach in. But a big part of it is that we want our guys to be able to be ready to go to college. Because to me, there's nothing worse than you send a bunch of kids to school and they end up back at Christmas because academically they couldn't cut it, or physically they couldn't cut it. We push our kids' boundaries, and I mean that in a positive way. Our kids are challenged. Our kids are focused on their goals. We're just like any place else. We got a couple knuckleheads, and we got some kids that got a long way to go before they're where they need to be as successful as they can be. That's the joy of coaching, right? If they all coach themselves, we'd all be out of a job. But
exactly.
But I would say collectively, some of our best players are some of our hardest workers. We have parents who definitely understand that college football is going to look a certain way, and treating these kids with kid gloves is not going to prepare them for what that's going to look like. But I would say I would stand by everything that we do. If anybody ever wants to come out, watch us work out, or come out to a practice, you're going to see a program that's ran well. We do things the right way, and we provide our kids the best opportunity to go and be successful now and then be successful later.
And that's all you can do. I mean, that's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. And I just think it's awesome that I just think so many times that, some of us that are in lower classifications or in rural places, or, we get lost in the bigger schools that have been successful or that compete on a national stage. We don't understand that, those guys are working too. It's not like they just, wake up and walk out there and, all right, guys, you're good. Johnny, go stand over there and be good. I'll just sit over here and watch you be good. It's just a lot more goes into it than, you're talking about 290-pound guards and his ankle flexion, and, you guys are really, really, really pushing the envelope on trying to get these guys as good as they can be at their age and at their stage of development.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, it is not all roses. We went in and we had a real good scrimmage this past fall at Mill Creek, and we felt pretty good about ourselves going into that Walton game in the Dome. And they waxed the floor with us and Corky Kell. And we had the important people tell us that Sunday that that's not how Grayson football operates. And but you choose to work at a place like that because you want those expectations.
Correct.
And you want to be in that. You want to be in that pressure cooker. You know what I mean? You kind of have to seek that out. And I know it's cliched at this point, but the old Spider-Man, great power comes great responsibility, and we have great responsibility to maintain the standards that has been Grayson football since Coach Kahn was there. And every day you walk in and you see all those, you see the 3-state championship banners, and you understand that they were successful before you were there, and they're going to be successful after you were there. You better just make sure they're successful while you're there, and that you're not the blemish on the record.
Exactly. So, you don't want to be that guy.
No.
Yeah, that's. I know we went up to Gainesville last year. I wanted to get some stuff from Coach Honeycutt, offensive line stuff. So we went up there and we watched, and we spent the night before, because they practice, first thing in the morning. And we got out there, and I got to see Coach Bryant, Coach Carswell do what they do. And, just great guys. I mean, just the staff that y'all have got together, and just being around other guys that are the best at what they do. Because if you weren't, you wouldn't be there.
Yeah. And there's days I have to kind of check myself. I, make sure I'm at the standard of what this place expects.
You don't want to be that guy.
No, I don't want to be that guy. and I mean,
you don't want to be the weakest link.
He's going to be mad at me saying this, but the truth is Coach Bryant is one of the best coaches, period, regardless of level. He's probably going to end up as an SEC position coach in the next 10 years, if I had to bet. So, it's just one of those things where we have to make sure that we do the best at our craft and make sure that we build those relationships and those connections. Because when you're at a place like that, you're there because you've had some success and people are investing in you having more success. And you just really kind of never know how that's going to shake out.
You can't treat it as you've arrived.
No,
you have to, no. Yeah. You're not done.
No. And it's I've heard on your podcast before, but it's the type of place you rent. I don't know. I'm 33 going on 34 this July, and I'm still not in the place in my life where I'd ever feel comfortable buying a house somewhere. Well,
looking back in the old days when I was about your age, we rented. Of course, we weren't financially solvent enough at the time. Probably we didn't have enough character to own a house. And when I was that age, it was in the early 2000s when the recession was there. So it really wasn't the best of times to be in that situation. But you're right. I mean, it's hard to put down roots right then. But that news you gave me earlier about what's coming in July may change that a little bit.
Yeah. I got our baby daughter coming. So my wife's birthday is July 27th. Mine's July 31st. And the due date right now is like July 29th. So our only hope is that she has her own birthday. We don't want her have to share a birthday with one of us.
Well, but, these days you can make that happen. I can just schedule it and tell them, as long as she cooperates. So is she going to be like her? I mean, if she cooperates, will she be more like you, or is she going to be more like her mama?
I hope she's more like her mama. And I'll be honest, like, she's a lovely person inside and out. But, did it help that she comes from a football family and that her brother had a cup of coffee in the NFL and that her other brother coached Division I football? Yes, that helped. Because she definitely understands the lay of the land. And, I'm so eager to see, what kind of person she ends up being. Does she end up being an athlete? Does she end up, being around when you have kids and as a coach, your kids are around a lot, and just, will she gravitate more towards the cheerleaders or more towards the athletes, or, just what kind of kid is she going to be? We're just so excited to find that out.
You got plenty of time. She'll probably want to be with her daddy wherever he goes. They always say them little girls love their daddies, but I wouldn't know. I have a little boy, but that's awesome, man. I'm so proud for you. We've been watching your career, heard great things about you when you went to Jackson, and watching you grow up. And now that you're becoming a middle-aged coach, like I told Coach Myers earlier today, had him on, and y'all are becoming middle-aged in this profession. And it's going to be, I know you told me you didn't want no part of being a head coach again, which is refreshing. And it ain't a bad thing, get in where you fit in and get really good at what you do and create your own niche and, do that. And,
the truth of it is, and Coach, I know you've worn that hat before. You get to coach less ball the higher you get.
Oh, it sucks.
And that was the thing.
You have to deal with more adults.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I didn't get in this to deal with adults. And those that know me can attest to the fact I'm not good with adults. I'm just not. I mean,
if we wanted to deal with adults all day, every day, we wouldn't have gotten into education. No,
we'd have probably been prison guards.
Yeah.
But I love dealing with kids. That's what I like doing. But it's just, like you said, going from the English classroom to the weight room, now you get to deal with more kids. You get to see a different aspect of them and how they operate outside of academia, which, not many of them are beating down the doors. There's not going to be 25,000 people show up to watch y'all read Chaucer, or, you give a grammar test, or, you guys make them stand up and say all their prepositions. And that's not going to happen.
James Caan say in the program, when's the last time 65,000 people showed up to see a science experiment?
Exactly. Unless it's a space shuttle taking off, that's not going to happen. So
I'll tell you right now, like, I really love my balance at Grayson. I'm able to do half day with the English, half day with strength and conditioning. And because I'll be honest, there was times when I was doing all full day strength where I kind of missed having a classroom. And I used to always, during my planning period when I was at Jackson, poke my head in different English classes. And I helped some of the younger teachers there with, because the first time you teach, you're like, okay, well, I think I know what my class wants to look like, but where do I start? And getting to kind of help some of them with that was really rewarding to me. And the setup now, it's just great. I get to bounce between the two, and some days one of them gets on my nerves, so I get to go do the other one. And just getting to have that balance has been not something I'd ever been able to do, and really not something that would ever really be possible in Illinois. And so that's a big part of, just that they can put you in a position, especially at a school as big as Grayson, they can put you in a position to highlight your strengths. And so you feel valued, so you can bring more value to your kids. And so, no, it's been a blessing to me that now I've been there for about a year, and hopefully we make it many more.
Hope so, Coach. Well, I sure do appreciate you coming on. Just an outstanding perspective on what you've done, how you got here, and your meteoric rise to ending up at Grayson for now, because who knows, you're renting. And no, I hope you stay there forever. You might be one of those guys that whoever the new head coach is, they tell him, the next head coach is, they tell him, all right, you can get rid of everybody except Stokowski. He's got to stay. Because sometimes that happens too.
Right.
But I appreciate you coming on with us. And if there's ever anything I can do to help you or point people in your direction in any way, you just let me know.
Well, hey, Coach, I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.
Good.